Welcome to Iowa, the university for writing and communication. From best-selling authors to Oscar and Emmy winners, screenwriters, directors, producers, and editors.
Welcome into the Your Illini Nation pregame show. Bret Beherns and Jeremy Werner here from Illini Inquirer, live from Iowa City and Kinnick Stadium on an absolutely perfect day for football. Jeremy, this is it, man. This is perfect. Like 50 degrees, light wind, sun's out. Awesome.
Yeah, one of my favorite venues to visit, one of the best atmospheres, I think, especially in the Big Ten West with 69,000 people right on top of you in the stadium. But we have gotten lucky with the weather this fall. Minneapolis 50 and sunny, Iowa City 50 and sunny in November. Can't beat this.
Man, the sun's out, we got the shades on. It's like sweatshirt weather, which is perfect for football. We've got an important matchup late in November.
That's right.
How we got to this point, probably not how we would have scripted it. If you would have told us at the beginning of the year that this game would mean something, I probably would have agreed. But the fact that Illinois can still win the West, the fact that Iowa can clinch the West with a win today over Illinois, and the fact that Illinois has not won here since 1999 when Bret Beherns was an assistant coach with Iowa, pretty remarkable, all things considered.
Yeah, you just said a lot to play for today. I think before the season, as you said, I had Iowa winning the West. I had them as a favorite just because I knew what they are. They play great defense. They play good special teams. Obviously, the big question about the offense, but Illinois, you thought they had a chance to be in the race, the Big Ten West race with a couple games left. They are. It just happened they started 2-4. They've won 3 out of their last 4, kind of getting on a hot streak. We'll see, though. This is their biggest test of the Big Ten West so far this season, probably their biggest test since playing Penn State at home. Given the opponent, given Iowa's record against you, given you haven't won here in the 21st century, and given that Illinois has not beaten Iowa in back-to-back years since 2000, since Bret Beherns wasn't linebackers coach at Iowa. So there's a lot on the line. Oh, and you can clinch bowl eligibility.
How about that?
If you get this win today, I think you kind of check off the box of can you sustain success? Because even though if you would have told me before the year 6 wins, that's a little lower at the end, but still that would have been get to another bowl game, show that year after year you can get into the postseason.
Yeah, I definitely think that. We're going to talk quarterbacks coming up, but the first news here is that Caden Fagan is out. Not that much of a surprise to us. Bret Beherns did not seem very optimistic when we talked to him on Thursday that Caden would play. Pat Bryant, questionable. So we don't know quarterback yet. We'll figure that out soon. We'll talk about that. But Caden Fagan's a loss because this means Reggie Love III is going to get the bulk of the carries. 24 carries last week, buck 42 touchdowns. But the depth behind him is maybe the bigger question. I feel good about Reggie, but when you got Nick Finanzo behind him, who doesn't have a lot of experience, that's a question mark against a very good Iowa defense.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring up running back first because this might have a bigger impact than whoever starts at quarterback, to be honest with you. Because while Reggie Love had a great week last week, it's because his offensive line had a great week. And kudos to Reggie. Showed a lot of a burst that Caden Fagan doesn't quite have. And he showed a lot of good vision and decisiveness. But he had 70 yards after contact. That's actually a low number for 140 yards rushing. So can you today, against a much better defense against Iowa, can you block like you did last week against this Iowa defensive front? I think it's going to be a huge day for the Illini offensive line that had a good game against Iowa last year. Illinois ran for 200 yards against a great Iowa defense. So that's my question. Reggie Love can't outrun bad blocking like Caden Fagan. Caden Fagan can turn bad blocking into 5 extra yards. Reggie Love's not that kind of back, but he's kind of back that if he gets good blocking, maybe he can get bigger runs, bigger gains off those. So it's going to be a huge day for the offensive line against an Iowa defensive line that might not have a ton of pros or high draft picks, but they're so good at what they do. They're stout, and they give their really good linebackers, Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins, a lot of room to operate to where they can get after the running back and quarterback.
And Iowa has a whole bunch of injuries too, so it's not just Illinois struggling with this injury front, which led to the quarterback debate here and who to play, and Luke Altmaier has been cleared. We saw him out here on the field warming up. We don't know who's going to start. Once again, we'll talk about that coming up. To me, that's not the biggest storyline going in, like as far as injuries and like how the game will play out, because Iowa's got a laundry list of guys that are out on the defensive line. Cooper DeJean, the All-American cornerback, is out as well. They're playing their backup quarterback like Deacon Hill. There's a lot of things that play into this that I think should make a lot of fans feel pretty good about their chance today.
Well, Cooper DeJean's a massive injury because he's not only one of the best cornerbacks in the nation that can kind of play like a Devin Witherspoon or Quan Martin kind of role. He's also one of their best playmakers when he gets his hand on the ball, whether that's an interception or he's one of the best punt returners,
punt returns
in the country. So remember, a couple years ago here in Iowa City, the game changed on a Charlie Jones punt return. It's so Iowa. They get some defensive big plays, and they get a big play on special teams, and that flips the game. I think Cooper DeJean's absence is massive. I'm surprised it did not have a bigger impact on the line, which I think is about 3.5 in favor of Iowa. But once he went out with that leg injury, I think that's so big for Iowa because Illinois can throw the ball. Iowa's secondary is strong. Their safeties are good, but Cooper DeJean is a huge part of that. He basically locks down one side of the field. So Illinois can only attack really maybe one corner. And now you got another corner in there, a little bit less experienced, less talented, obviously. So now if it's John Paddock, Luke Altmaier, you might feel a little bit more comfortable when you're not throwing at Cooper DeJean, a potential first-round draft.
Yeah, and I kind of reference it like Devin Witherspoon last year, where teams just didn't throw it to that side of the field. Cooper DeJean, I don't know if he's going to be the 5th overall pick, but like he's going to be a first-round pick for sure for what he's able to do. And we saw earlier in the Minnesota game this year where he had the fake fair catch signal. That should have changed that game for Iowa to win that game, and yet the refs called it off because they said he was fair catch. He was doing one of these, like, that's debatable. I don't know, but that was on this field, and that should have changed that game. For Iowa's favor. They ended up losing that one.
Well, for a team that's so bad offensively in Iowa, what are they relying on? Takeaways, good defense, and special teams setting them up for short fields or pinning the other team back. Cooper DeJean's a huge part of that.
No
so
doubt.
I think it's a bad break for a player that's one of the best players in the Big Ten, in the mix for Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Probably not going to win that now. Maybe that helps Johnny Newton, but it's a huge break for Illinois that Iowa's without its best player.
Yeah, and it happened in practice. Like, you just feel bad for the guy that he can't finish out the season for a practice injury. Like, that's really tough this time of year. But it goes Illinois' way, and that is a big storyline coming in. How do you see this offensive line that's progressed? They took a lot of bullets early on this season, Jeremy, because they were not very good. But I feel like they are playing their best football. They are gelling. I feel like this group has really become cohesive and led them certainly for that rushing attack last week, but also pass pro. I feel like they've made a lot of strides here in the last month.
Yeah, they've had some ups and downs throughout the last month, but they played how we thought they would play. Like, I didn't think coming into this year this would be an elite offensive line, but I thought it would be really good. Now, they had to change up some pieces. Isaiah Adams moving, Josh Geske moving, Zy Kressler moving, but finally, their best 5 offensive linemen are healthy, and I think you're starting to see some consistency. That said, this is not Indiana. Right? This is not even Maryland, who's a bowl-eligible team with some talented pieces. Iowa is just so consistent. They're so reliable, and they're so stout up front. So Joe Evans is a really good defensive end. Logan Lee, an Illinois native, is really good at defensive tackle. So this is going to be a huge challenge for them. But if they bring it physically, I think Illinois could have an advantage because if they can run the ball and, this team can throw the ball, especially Cooper DeJean out, that becomes difficult. This would be Iowa's one of their harder tests offensively if Illinois is able to establish itself in the run game.
Yeah, and in the secondary for Illinois on the defensive side, like Deacon Hill threw for 200 yards last week. They rejoiced here in Iowa. They're like, oh my gosh, it's a huge output, 200 yards. And to think that John Paddock threw for 507 last week, it's just crazy how that is. Let's talk about who's going to throw the ball for Illinois. I know a huge storyline all week. I did not buy Bret Beherns on the radio show on Sirius XM Big Ten saying that Luke Altmaier was a starter.
Did he say he's a starter?
I don't know.
I read that quote. I heard that quote. I think that was word salad.
I think it was.
I think, yes, there was some misdirection by Bielema keeping everything guessing. But I thought that's why we didn't report that Luke Altmaier was starting. And let's put this together. Bret Beherns said he told his team he was starting a quarterback on Sunday.
Yes.
Luke Altmaier did not get cleared until Tuesday. Now, he probably knew Luke Altmaier would get cleared.
Sure.
Still, you don't know for sure.
Yep.
I think they're going to ride the hot hand to start this game, Brett. I think it's the right decision for the team because they believe in John Paddock. John Paddock has earned this opportunity. And to be honest with you, I think his ability to diagnose pre-snap is going to be really important against an Iowa team that doesn't, it's kind of like Lovie Smith, and that they don't hide a lot. They don't disguise a lot. So you're going to be able to know where to go with the ball, and he gets the ball out a little bit quicker than Luke Altmaier. Two, I think it's the best thing for Luke Altmaier. I think putting him out there to start the game after the way John Paddock played against this defense after suffering a concussion, I don't know if that's a fair thing for him. I think it'd be really hard to pull Luke Altmaier, put John Paddock in. I think it'd be really easy to start John Paddock, see if that magic and that heater can continue.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work, you go right to Luke Altmaier. He's your guy for the next 2.5+ years. He's your guy regardless. But this team believes in John Paddock until they're given reason not to. I think it's a smart move to go with John Paddock. I think that's where they're going. I don't know for sure, but I think that was the plan early in the week.
The bigger news to me out of that interview on Wednesday, Jeremy, was that Luke Altmaier had been cleared. We didn't know that until that point. That's what I took away from that interview. Definitely word salad in terms, and Bret's pretty good at that. And the other thing too is we've covered Bret for 3 years. When has he ever midweek said this guy's our starter? It just doesn't happen.
They don't even tell us to look starter at left guard.
Yes.
Right? They are doing anything they can to make the opponent guess. And Iowa has to prepare for both. I think that's a smart thing. Both these guys bring different things to the table. The good news is, Bret, we're talking about two quarterbacks I think you feel confident can give you a chance to win
right
at Iowa. It's been a long time since that's happened at Illinois, since Riley O'Toole and Westlaw.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the case, right? 2014, 2015.
And that experience covering that shapes a lot of how I viewed this, in that Riley was a senior, John Paddock's a senior.
Yeah.
There's just a little bit of urgency there and just a kind of effort mentality.
Yeah, and he said that.
Yes, and he said that, but also that year, it's not that they didn't believe in West Lawn, but it's that when Riley came in, there was a juice. He added a juice and a belief in that team, and I see the exact same thing in John Paddock. I think you have to ride that going into a must-win game here.
Yeah, and look, I love the fact that John was like, hey, what do I have to lose? Yeah. You know, he's a walk-on. He came here. He's in his 6th season, right?
And I think,
sling it, man.
I think Luke Altmaier understands it. He was on the radio with
He's
Derek
a smart
Piper
guy.
and Monte. Hey, if they went with him, I would understand it. Like the way he's playing right now. Plus, Luke knows he's got 2 more years to start.
Yes.
He has shown enough that he is the guy to build around. So I think this discussion's gotten into, is this guy like getting into bashing Luke? This is not about bashing Luke. This is just about a once-in-a-lifetime kind of heater that John Paddock is on. And I think you just got to ride with it.
Yeah, and at the same point, Jeremy, isn't it like, okay, well, if this guy gives us the best chance to win right now with Luke still coming off the concussion, don't they want to play in a bowl game?
Yes.
Like, hey, if this means that they get to go and advance their season and still maybe try and get to a Big Ten West title, go for it.
I know it's different for quarterback, but yeah, if you're about the team, you understand these things. You just do your job, and you know what John Paddock did? He lost the quarterback job. He was prepared for his opportunity. Yeah. I know Luke Altmaier was told this week, be ready, because they might need him.
Yes.
Iowa is a way different test. I think John Paddock's proven himself that we think he's going to get Illinois a chance here. But it's a way different test, and if he struggles, Luke Altmaier will get an opportunity.
Yeah, Bielema called it a whole different animal this week. I thought that's a pretty good explanation. They are. Man, this is Phil Parker to a T. They know what they do, right? And this has been a system for a decade, right? Like they've come in, and this has been this system even longer than that since Kirk's been here, right? In '99, like I don't know how much the system has really changed in that amount of time. And you build to a system, you recruit to a system. Maybe that makes it, in a sense, a little easier to prepare for. I don't know, but like the fact that they know what they're going to get today, right? From Illinois' offense, from this defense, look, go win the game. I mean,
you don't got to hide things when you execute well.
Yeah.
And that's what this team does extremely well. They do not beat themselves, and they take advantage of opponents' mistakes. So it's one reason I like John Paddock. I think he's so poised. I think he reads the defense really well, gets the ball. He's been pretty accurate so far this year. So that's why I kind of like his fit with this. But yes, Iowa sits in that zone defense, quarters defense most of the time. So Illinois is going to have to take the singles. You got to take the singles, move the ball, and then they're kind of waiting for the mistakes. Lovie Smith did the same thing in a cover 2 for the most part. Just Illinois was not disciplined enough to run it. They had zone bus. They had all these things. They had tackle well. They had penalties. Iowa's the least penalized, second least penalized team in the country behind Michigan. And they just make big plays on the ball, and they just don't miss tackles, all that. They're just disciplined and reliable.
On Iowa's defense, 3rd in the country in scoring, 12.3 points per game allowed. Very similar to what Illinois had last season. And I love the defensive stats on the scoring for the nation. It's like 5 Big Ten teams in the top 20, man. Like, it's incredible for what that is. I think it goes Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa.
They got our brand.
Like,
that is the Big Ten brand.
Pretty crazy for what that is. But Illinois' defense, especially the secondary last week, struggled big time against an Indiana team that's not that talented overall. So, do they make adjustments? Do we see new guys in the secondary? And do they continue to play man? That's my big question.
We saw new guys last week, and I'm not sure how well they went outside of one play with Mac or Sedich. I think the same guys will get the opportunity. Taz Nicholson has to play better. But it didn't bother me that Donovan McCulley and Brendan Sorsby made plays. Like, they made some great – Sorsby made some great throws. He's playing extremely well right now for Indiana at quarterback. Donovan McCulley's 6'5", 200 pounds. He's going to win some physical battles.
Matchup.
And he's really developed as a wide receiver. So I don't mind when you lose one-on-one battles like that. What bothers me is when you have coverage busts. Remember, they had several coverage busts there. They had several coverage busts against Minnesota. That put him in a bad – that was not happening. As bad as the defense was at certain points, the coverage busts were not happening. Then tackling was really poor. But the penalties, Brett. You cannot commit penalties against Iowa and give them extra opportunities, give them extra yards, because they struggle enough as it is. You cannot give them those extra opportunities. The good news is you're going up against a passing offense that's terrible. Now, last week they played well against a good Rutgers defense, threw for 200 yards. Saw Caleb Brown, Illinois native, former Ohio State guy, come into the game, make some impacts. They're not a good downfield throwing team. You got to stop the run with Iowa. They have a pretty good offensive line. They got a couple good running backs. You got to be able to make them throw to advance the ball. And then you got to make some plays, but not committing penalties. Illinois is one of the most penalized teams in the country. Iowa is one of the least penalized teams in the country. That's a huge key to them.
Yeah, I view it as discipline. Whether it's a coverage bust, whether it's penalties, you're going to have some penalties for sure, especially if you're playing man, because you're always into a guy, right? Like, I get that. You're going to have some DPIs. But, like, to me, it's just discipline. Like, be more disciplined. Give yourself a chance in the secondary to win. And they, by and large, haven't done that. This has been a problem all season. It seemed like in the middle of the year they cleaned it up a little bit. But remember early on, Jeremy, this team was very heavily penalized.
And it's veterans. I mean, and Taz Nicholson has about 10 penalties this year. And a lot of them are costly, giving up first downs. Those guys have to clean those things up. But the good news is you're playing an Iowa passing offense that not nearly as good as Indiana. I am impressed by Sorsby. I think he's been a really good quarterback. They don't have a wide receiver like McCulley, but you can't have those penalties, and you got to wrap up and tackle. They struggle to tackle. If you give Iowa some breakaway runs, that can change the game. A huge key of this game is if you get a lead, Iowa has a hard time coming back. But if Iowa gets a lead, they can milk this clock away. That's how they want to play. They want to play get in the mud. I think if Illinois can put couple points on the board early can really force Iowa outside of its game plan.
All right, so it's a 9-6 game last year in Champaign. Just ugly football. Iowa probably should have won that game. Remember, Art fumbled deep in territory. They ran it back.
Thank goodness Art is 6'5" with long arms. His elbow hit the ground.
Got that elbow down. But special teams has been somewhat of a concern. Caleb Griffin missed an extra point last week. Did make a couple of field goals to come back, but in a game like this where you feel like you're going to need special teams play to be strong, how are you feeling about what Illinois is at right now with those special teams?
Iowa has a massive advantage on special teams now.
Even with Cooper out.
Cooper DeJean is out. But Torrey Taylor, he has Blake Hayes on steroids. And he's probably the best punter in the country. Will probably get drafted. He's a phenomenal player. Drew Stevens, their kicker, probably an all-Big Ten kicker. He's won the Big Ten Special Teams Player, the Special Teams Player of the Week award. And then they kick return well. They cover well. Special teams is elite. PJ Fleck used that word a lot. Their defense is elite. Their special teams is elite. That's why they're 8-2 and should be 9-1. Their offense is atrocious. Those sides of the ball, they're great. So Illinois, you just cannot lose the game on special teams. You cannot give Iowa an extra possession, whether it's fumbling a punt return. You cannot kick the ball out of bounds to give them good field position that sets up a field goal that makes the difference. You got to be able to execute your punts, and you got to be able to cover kicks. They've been kind of really inconsistent on special teams. There's great games, Brett, and then there's bad games on special teams. They have to be consistent today.
What do you make of Kenari Wilcher and KOR? Had a return last week, but the penalty, once again, penalties on special teams, even the combo platter there, as Bret Beherns likes to say, you not only had the penalties, you were on special teams too, man. Like, what do you like about Kenari, and do you expect him to continue that role for when he flashed?
Well, I just want to be clear, he probably would not have returned that to the house if it wasn't for the holding on Tim Ryman. But yes, you're seeing a speed, a decisiveness out of him right now. And that would have been the first kickoff return since 2013. D'Angelo Bentley has held this title, this championship belt for the punt and kick return for 10 years. It's time to change that. Isaiah Williams gets close on punt returns. He's potentially an all-Big Ten punt returner. But Kenari Wilcher's added speed. You're seeing a decisiveness, better decision-making out of him as well. So Yeah, that would be big. And even if you get to 50 on one of those, set yourself up on a short field. You're right. Caleb Griffin's been inconsistent on kicks. You need the senior to come up big today. He's come up in the clutch, Brett.
Yep.
But coming up with some early field goals, if you can make those. Because listen, field goals can win this game.
Yep.
They won it last year. Fabrizio Pintone made 3 field goals within 40 yards. That was it. Like, you could win the game by making 4 or 5 field goals.
And if you have a solid effort from Hugh, if you're playing that field position battle, like, can Hugh put Illinois in a position to pin Iowa back, make Iowa go drive 85 yards and see if that offense can sustain a drive, and we'll see how that plays out. The one thing, and you mentioned there with Caleb Griffin being pretty clutch down the stretch, this team has played pretty well, especially the last month in the final few minutes of the game. You take away a terrible fourth quarter against Wisconsin where they got outscored 18-0, and this team's won 4 straight games.
And you didn't have Johnny Newton in that game. Illinois has 4 of their 5 wins have come in the last minute or overtime. That's why I think if you get into the fourth quarter with a game, I feel like Illinois is going to have a chance to win this game. Like, I feel like they are good closers. They are resilient, both in the short term of a game, Brett, and in the long term of a season. This team's got some mental toughness. If they just don't beat themselves, give themselves a chance in the fourth quarter, who are you going with? John Paddock or Luke Altmaier or Deacon Hill? Isaiah Williams or Caleb Brown, who hasn't really proven it quite yet.
Right.
I think that's massive. I do want to mention, going off topic, Pat Bryant listed as questionable, so we'll see if he comes out. He had a big game. He's really emerged, I feel like, the last couple of weeks. So if you can have him, Casey Washington, Isaiah Williams all healthy, passing game can really get going. It's hard for Iowa to cover all those guys.
Yeah, and you got a little emergence of Ashton Hollins last week. I thought he came along. He's a tall dude, man. Like, former quarterback, came in. I thought he really made a nice presence. How do you think Iowa then will match up? Like, is it Pat Bryant on the backup for Cooper DeJean then? Like, I think that's an interesting mix where you would have had that side of the field maybe completely shut off in a sense. How do you see that matchup in there? Like, is it Pat Bryant? Is it Casey Washington? Who does Illinois try and get on a backup there?
Feed number 1. Feed number 1, that getting that guy the ball, he makes plays. He's the best playmaker in this game with Cooper DeJean out. And I think Cooper DeJean would have spied, basically, just been all over Isaiah Williams for most of this game. Jamari Harris from Lombard Montini Catholic in the state of Illinois. He's a solid corner. I think he can match up. He's got ranked against Casey Washington. And the Iowa recruits defensive backs really, really well, right? Their safety play is really, really good. But I think Isaiah Williams has a much better matchup than he thought he was going to have coming in with Cooper DeJean out.
Pretty crazy. We'll see. And I remember, was it the Wisconsin game, Jeremy, that Isaiah had like 1 catch, 2 catches?
4 catches for 16 yards. Yeah.
Like, since that point, I will say, Barry Lunny has gotten him involved way more. And I think that's important.
I don't think Barry Lunny's on the hot seat.
No,
I think we can end that talk. He's had a phenomenal last month. I think he's really put his guys in position to succeed. I just talked with somebody who knows a lot more football than me. He thinks the other reason John Paddock should start is he feels like with John Paddock, he knows what he can do. Luke Altmaier might overthink sometimes because he's got that running element, all that. Maybe it becomes a little bit more simplistic for him. But regardless of who's been at quarterback, I think Barry Lunny's had a really good last month of the season. You see what his offense can be when you can consistently run the ball. And that's my question today.
Right.
Can you consistently run the ball to set up that passing attack for success?
Big Ten West leading offense, man. That's crazy. Like,
that's right.
Now,
that's
the bar is low, all right? Like,
Illinois has the best quarterback situation in the Big Ten West. They have the best wide receiver situation in the Big Ten West, and the best offense in the Big Ten West. Now, that all has an asterisk on it, but
fine.
It's true. It's a factual statement right now.
Yeah, and maybe, look, scoring 48 against a bad Indiana offense certainly helps.
You still got to score 48.
So they went out and did it. All right, let's wrap up here. You ready to make a score prediction?
I am.
All right, so I've been asking you all season, what was your score prediction before, like when you predicted in August? How much did it change to now?
I had 16-13 Iowa, I think, before the season.
Okay, I can see
early in the week, that was still my prediction.
Okay.
Then Cooper DeJean got hurt.
That's true.
And listen, I can see Iowa winning this one 20-3. Right? I can see that.
Chokehold.
But they are vulnerable right now. They have been for a while, and they keep winning. So I want to mention that. I respect the heck out of Iowa. But I think Illinois has played as well as any team in the Big Ten West over the last month. And I believe in their quarterback, John Paddock makes a start. I believe in what they're doing offensively. And I think this is a good offensive matchup for the Illini defense. And Johnny Newton, who we haven't even mentioned here, is going to be a problem for Iowa. And he got him for a full game today. So with Cooper DeJean going out, I'm calling it. First win since 1999. Okay. Illinois 17, Iowa 16.
Okay.
Caleb Griffin game-winning field goal.
Oh, nice. All right. Man,
I have no confidence. I have no confidence in that pick going up against Iowa. I feel like Iowa losing Cooper DeJean is a massive blow for them.
And how do they respond back to that? I was thinking about this morning, Jeremy. Like, it happens at practice. How does the rest of that practice go? On, I believe it was Wednesday it happened? Tuesday or Wednesday. Like, how did the guys respond to that in practice from the Iowa side? Like, they know that's massive, right? And then how do they build upon that? Because you would have to think that there's some things that change, right? Like, whoever replaces Cooper for Iowa, they're not Cooper.
It's a punt returner too. Somebody that doesn't have many reps. Maybe that leads to a fumble or something.
They're going to have to make those adjustments too. I've been going back and forth I don't know. Is Illinois going to pull this thing out? The line started at 4.5. I saw it at 2.5 this morning. Like, I think there's a lot of public side on Illinois. Like, they're just buying into this Iowa.
Illinois should be 4-0 in their last 4 games.
Right, yes, exactly. That's the point. But then again, Iowa holds a Rutgers team last week to 22-0 here. Like, at the same point.
This is a tough place to win. It's a phenomenal program. Kirk Ferentz is so good at what he does.
Yeah.
I just feel like Illinois has a real opportunity today to come out with a win.
I'm going to say 14-13 Illinois. All right. We're both picking it. Homer you here, I guess. I think for all these reasons, I think Johnny Newton can eat today. I think he can really have a big impact, really cause havoc for their run game. And if you can get some more pressures on Deacon Hill, maybe you force him into a bad decision. But at the same point, it's like, when is the Illinois secondary this season? They had the pick last week, but like they haven't really gone out and got those Hawkins turnovers.
That's why it's a huge game for Seth Coleman, Keith Randolph, Gabe Akis, Alec Bryant. Got to get some plays from those guys. If you get pressure on Deacon Hill, he's a stationary quarterback.
Yep.
That's a good thing for Illinois.
No doubt.
When you got Johnny Newton good double team or Johnny Newton one-on-ones, they got to take advantage of that, help their secondary out, because in Indiana, they got the ball out quickly and obviously showed that man-to-man coverage.
And I feel like if you have a quarterback that does not run, you can dial up some more pressures. You can dial up some more stunts because you're confident that he can't get out of the pocket and hurt you with his legs.
As long as you can stop the run. Right?
Let's get a terrible Big Ten West game here. We only got 2 of them left, right? This week and next week, the end of the Big Ten West. So let's just muck it up. For Big Ten West football. I don't know, man. It wouldn't surprise me, like you said, if Iowa comes out, gets an early lead. Let's say it's 10-0 at half. Just chokeholds this game in the second half. I don't know, though. I think if they're riding the Paddock magic, let's go.
Well, and you'll be rooting for, I believe it's Wisconsin today against Nebraska, correct? You want Wisconsin to win, then you want Minnesota to win next week. So you got some other things to root for today.
All right, we'll see. Illinois still with a chance in the Big Ten West, but you got to get some things going your way. You got to win today. All right, for Jeremy Werner, I'm Bret Beherns. Thanks so much for watching the Your Illini Nation pregame show. We'll see you right back here on these same digital channels after the game to hear from Bret Bielema live. Listen to Jeremy's pod. We've got a pod. Hey, everybody's got a pod. It's 2023. Isn't that how that works? Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again next week and after the game here on these same digital channels.